Okay, so here we are at the sewing machine, and I'm going to show you how these go together. Again, I'm going to have two different color families for this basic way of doing it. I'm using gray and teal. They tend to be my signature colors. You can use whatever you want to. So to start out, I'm just going to grab a gray and a teal, and I'm going to act like I'm just making a regular half square triangle. You can see I have my line down the middle, and I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch on the one side of that line, on the right side of that line, okay? I find it a little confusing to have the line drawn because I'm so used to not drawing it, so I hope I don't screw this up. But I know most people do like that. So I'm sewing a 1/4 inch away from the center line, boom. And then you pull it out, and it's best really to trim because this method does tend to have lots and lots of trimmings. Okay, you can see I used a thread that you can totally see, and that is very, very helpful. I know it's not a real blendy thread for piecing, but when I go to show you how I cut these apart, I think you're going to be really happy, at least for the first few times, if you use a contrasting thread rather than a blendy one. Okay, so next step, I hold it in my hand so that I can make sure I do it properly. Once you get the hang of it, you don't have to do that. Keep your stitches that you just did to the right of the diagonal. And then you're going to take the left side, open it up, and flip it over to the right. And then this part underneath, push it over to the left. So you're always going to have the bulk over to the left and the one layer that you just sewed on to the right. And then you go ahead and put it down again. You can kind of finger press it just a little bit to make sure it stays out of the way. And then I just did teal, so I'm going to go with gray. I'm going to take my next one and I'm going to line up right at the points my next one. And again, sew to the right side of that diagonal line. And I'm going to remove it. Keep that stitching to the right just so I don't screw up. And again, I'm going to open it up left to right and push all those other things underneath to the left. Isn't that cool? It's like the start of a little picket fence. I'll do it one more time here for you. Actually, I'll do it a couple more times. Once again, put it down points to points. Sew a 1/4 inch to the right of that seam. There, of the center line, excuse me. Very, very important to always sew to the right and keep that stitching to the right when you go to open it up. If you sew to the left accidentally, you're going to end up with a great big mess. And when I teach this in a class, that's when somebody calls me over and says, I think I screwed up. And I always say, yes, I think you did, but that's why they invented seam rippers. So again, we're going to open it up, push everything else to the left. And I'm going to put 2 more on. It really is kind of addictive once you do this method. It's really fun just to see how cute it ends up looking. And just because I'm alternating to make my accordion, different grays and different teals, doesn't really mean you can't use the same one. You're going to end up with 2 the same every time, but that's all right. You know, if you like this method, there's no reason you can't do it even with the same fabrics. Okay, and then I'm going to put 1 more teal. Line it up. Sometimes it starts getting a little bit wonky, so just kind of overcompensate at the top sometimes the next time, and then you're okay. But again, we cut them oversized, so we're going to trim them down, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Okay, trim. And here is where the magic happens. Once you end up with all of your little accordioned half square triangles and they're flat like this, well, you can just take your one end and put it together with the other end. Isn't that brilliant? Make sure that you have your points pretty much lined up again. And here you're not going to have a line, so you're just going to have to kind of, actually you might have, except I screwed that up. So then right down on a 1/4 inch away again, and then you end up with this really funky looking little flappy thing. And the next video is going to show you how to cut them apart and how to trim them.